Let me see. Okay, we're live. We're live, people. I am very, very pleased. I'm very, very pleased to welcome Mr. Angry Bootneck. I'm a fan of his, actually. I'm actually a huge fan of his channel. If you haven't heard of him, or if you haven't heard of his channel, please, please, whatever you do, go to his channel. You know, usually adult people, we can agree to disagree on certain things and still be fan of somebody. I agree with pretty much everything he says, but that's not why I'm a fan of this. I'm a fan of this because I love his views. Yeah, I love it. I enjoy his channel greatly. I you know I usually, I really do watch all his videos, believe it or not, and I'm very busy at the farm sometimes. When I'm working in the sun, I actually put on your videos just to laugh a little bit from the sweat. So please, please, all beautiful people, go to his channel, subscribe, let's show him some love. And yes, even if you agree to let's be adults, let's call something, I don't know, I'm 54, you're very young, but I'm 54. But when I was growing up, there used to be something called debating free speech, respecting other people's opinions.
Them were the days. It's
Yeah.
tragic. They've gone by, haven't they? Yeah, that was glowing, that, Paul. I think even my own mother's never said anything as nice about me as that. So cheers. I
No, no,
appreciate it.
no. I mean, cheers. I mean, he's been a good boy. I'm drinking a beer because, guys, I've been working all day in the farm, and this is one of the few perks. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm sort of embarrassed that I'm drinking tea and you're drinking beer. It's
No, that's okay. Don't worry about
putting
it.
me to shame.
No, no, no. But so, for people who don't know who you are, can you please give us background on who you are?
Right, well, my real name's Matt or Matthew. No one calls me Matthew unless they're shouting at me. So most people I know call me Matt. It's like my dad and my mum used to shout, Matthew, up the stairs, but everybody else calls me Matt. Or Bootneck, it's fine. We can use our pseudonyms as far as I'm concerned. What am I? I'm 43. I
Wow.
currently live in California, but I'm actually from England, northeast England.
Oh,
Nobody gets that right either. Everyone in America, when they hear me talk, they assume I'm Irish or Scottish. I guess because I'm not as well spoken as the Queen, so they always think I'm Irish or Scottish. But no,
are
I'm
you
from
near
northeast.
Cheshire? Are you near Cheshire or far?
Cheshire's still pretty far from me. You might be thinking of Carlisle. That's up north.
Yeah, yeah. Okay.
Carlisle's northern. I'm from Middlesbrough, which is right in the northeast.
Oh, I know where that is. I went there a couple of times.
Yeah, closest city is Newcastle, big city.
Yeah. Yep.
So right up there. And my YouTube video is just comedy, really. I talk about anything. Sometimes I do movie reviews, badly and shoddily edited. Sometimes I do political stuff quite a lot. But generally, I mean, I'm sure you were talking about us disagreeing. I'm sure that we will agree on many things because ultimately I am a centrist. I'm right in the middle, like every political
I
test I've
know.
ever done, a compass. I'm right in the middle. But the world's gone so crazy now that literally, like, everybody just assumes that if you don't agree with the people that are as far left as you can possibly go, that you're some sort of like barn stomping conservative who, thinks all the women should be trad wives and all the men should be in charge and, be loggers or something. And I'm not that way at all. I'm very socially liberal. But which is why I'm nuanced on the monarchy, right? And I'm assuming that's where you first started watching me when I made some scathing.
Actually, no. I one of your videos caught my attention. I think it had something to do with politics or something like that. And I thought, because I'm very politically involved, I also, I just don't talk about politics on my channel, but I'm actually very politically involved in the sense of I am. I was watching Selective Outrage with Chris Rock. I don't know if you watched it.
I've seen it advertised, but I haven't watched it yet. No, I will watch it because I think he's
It's
funny.
amazing because he pretty much says that selective outrage is from people who are outraged at behavior that they themselves do.
All
So
the
it's
time.
okay for certain people to behave that way, but not okay for other people to behave the same way. You know what?
It's a crazy time to be alive, honestly, it really is. Because, like I said, I've always considered myself to be very socially liberal. Like, if I was living in America 10 years ago, I'd have probably voted for Obama. In fact, I definitely would have done. I've never been a conservative, a large C conservative. But it's literally the last 5 or 6 years, isn't it? The whole world's gone mad. and it seems to have divided into these two warring camps. But I think the reason I personally, again, I thought you first started watching me when I was having a pop at everybody's favourite Duchess. The reason I started having a go at them.
We'll get into that, but actually, I have other two topics in mind that are very, very good. But I don't know, we'll see. But can you please tell people? Well, we know you're British. Your first name is Matthew or Matt or Bootneck.
Yeah.
You know they can call you. A lady asked you if she can call you Booty.
Booty,
yeah. Get a lot of women from California trying to contact you.
You can, but that's because it's fine in England. A booty is a bootneck. It's quite well known terminology. It's slang for a British Royal Marine, because that's what I was in my youth. An American one, they get called leathernecks, and it's from the same root. And it's because in the old days, the Marines, the shipborne fighters, used to have thick leather collars around the uniforms, so you couldn't stab, like cut the throat. So they would start calling them bootnecks or leathernecks, and that's what a bootneck is. It's a British Royal Marine, and that's why my name's Bootneck. So you can call me Booty, and in the UK it has nothing to do with looking at my ass. So that's totally fine.
Can you tell me a little bit, were you in the military at all?
Yeah, so that was my background. When I was the reason I don't instantly leap into talking about the military is because despite the fact a lot of people assume when they see my name, they assume that this is going to be a military-themed channel because a bootneck is a British commando, a Royal Marine. And that was all of my youth was military. I joined the Territorial Army when I was 16. And then what did
you join, sorry?
The Territorial Army. It's like the British version of the National Guard, basically. It's like the part-time, the reservists. Cool. I did that for a few years with a view to joining the Royal Marines because it's an elite organisation. It's difficult to get in. It's like our Green Berets, basically. It's a commando unit. Yeah. So I did that when I was 19, and then I spent nearly 10 years doing that. I invaded Iraq. I went back twice. I went to Afghanistan twice. I went to Sierra Leone, Northern Ireland. I'm a veteran of 5 operations and 9 years in the military as well, in the Royal Marines.
The military, UK?
Yeah, Royal Marines.
Were you deployed anywhere?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying now. I was actually involved in the invasion of Iraq. So we were there like 6 weeks before the war started because we were securing the oil pipelines in Basra. And then I went back a year later. I went to Afghanistan twice during the war on terror. I went to Northern Ireland, Sierra Leone. Yeah, I saw a lot of action. But the reason I don't go on about it is because, like I said, my channel is not entirely military based. I sort of picked the name on a whim because I'm a bootneck. And then everybody thinks all I'm going to be talking about is like survival and war and stuff, because there are a lot of good military themed channels on YouTube where they do like survival stuff and prepping and shooting and guns and ammo. And I don't really do that very often. I talk about everything, but it's definitely not military themed. So I think in hindsight, I probably should have chose a better name, but I just picked it on a whim because of.
I actually love the name. Your channel. I really do love your channel. But I want to ask you something. Now that you talk, now that you talked a little bit more about your military career, I mean, that must have been really wicked times. I mean, right before the wars and stuff like that, you were right in there.
Oh yeah. Well, I joined in '99, so. The funny thing is, when you're a young kid, you join something like the Royal Marines.
Before 9/11.
Yeah, and that's what I'm saying. The thing is, when you're a kid and you join something like the Royal Marines, it's not like a lot of jobs in the military where you just want a job. You want to get away from your hometown, you want to get some prospects, and you want to learn a trade or something. If you want to go in an actual, like a commando unit, you want to fight. And it was because when I was a young man, I was always like boisterous and, rough and tumbled. I'm a manly man, right?
Sorry, you're 43. You're a young man to me. Okay, you're 43, but you look like you're 22. You have to give me your secret because I'm 54.
My receding hairline and my love handles disagree, but yeah, I don't feel too old. And the point I'm getting at is, when you do a job like that, you do want to be in the thick of it. It's not like, going in to be an engineer or joining the Air Force or the Navy. It's like, you don't go in to get a trade. You go because you and in hindsight, that's sort of naive as well. It's why, despite the fact I've got a Green Beret and I was in plenty of wars, I'm something of a pacifist now with regards to fighting, because I feel as if, like, just because we have volunteer militaries in the West, I feel as if that's the excuse the politicians look for instantly just throwing us into the meat grinder. Whereas if we had a draft or conscription, I feel as if they'd be a little bit more hesitant to use force. And now I feel a little bit ambiguous about it, because it's like, on the one hand, I'm very pro-military, and I was a bootneck for nearly 10 years. But on the other hand, you're really a bit dumb when you're a teenager. And even though you're an adult, really, like 18, you're an adult. I look back at the reasons I wanted to join. I do think it was naive. Like, just because we volunteer, in my old age, I'm starting to feel a little bit more reticent about invading people. And also the results show for themselves it's not good. But yeah, when I was a teenager, I just wanted to be in the thick of the fighting. I read about the Luxor tourist massacre when I was a teenager, and that was what made me really want to be a Royal Marine and get in a commando unit, because it was so horrific and brutal what the jihadis did to all the tourists in Luxor, torturing them, raping them, killing the children and stuff. I instantly was just like, I want to go and kill those bastards. And that's what I wanted to do. I joined for base reasons. And looking back, it was naive. But the irony is I got my wish, because I'd only been in for 18 months or whatever it was. And then all of a sudden, the Twin Towers went down. And I remember watching it at the military base, basically fresh out the box with my green beret on, going, okay, looks like we're invading someone now. And a couple of weeks later, we were in Afghanistan. So I got my wish.
Can I say something? Because I'm Canadian, Nicaraguan, and I have lived. I don't know. Many people don't know the history of Nicaragua. We're always in a war. I lived in Canada also because I'm Canadian as well. So I had the fortune of being able to leave Nicaragua when things were bad, and I grew up in both countries. Being in Nicaragua, I can tell you that what the press says in order to justify a war and what the reality is on the ground in the country that they're invading is completely different.
Of course.
And then what's worse is I've because I'm 54, I've seen so many government changes in the United States. No shade to the people in the US, but the government has supported each dictator that has come to power and armed
100%.
them and trained them. And then when they turn on them, then they're the evil people. But they train them and they arm them.
Always.
So how does the reality of what you thought you were getting into and what kind of people they were, the ones that you were going to invade, how did that compare when you were actually in the ground and you interacted with people?
Yeah, well, see, this might be where you thought we might have some disagreements, but I bet you we don't, because like I said, I think especially as you age as well, maybe when I was 21, if I was 21, I'd be here with a dagger between my teeth going like, kill them all, because that's what you think when you're young.
Oh, Crocodile Dundee.
Yes, ridiculous. But I actually totally agree with you. And what you're saying is proof of what I was saying about the results speak for themselves, right? The exact same thing happened in Afghanistan. And obviously I'm something of an expert on places like that. We trained them. We trained, organized, provided logistical support to the Mujahideen when they were fighting the Soviets in Afghanistan in the 80s. And then sure enough, we end up invading Afghanistan and we're fighting the people that we trained and we supplied. So it's exactly the same situation. All of the interventionism that we do seems to go badly because politicians have a very myopic worldview. They're only interested in the short term. The old adage that everybody says is, a society grows great when people plant trees whose shade they will never sit in, because it means that you're looking to the future. And politicians all across the world, they love to be arrogant in the Anglo countries and make out as if it's like a South and Central America and African problem. But it's everywhere. They only care about the short term. They want to feather their own nest as quickly as possible. And they're not thinking about the long term. And that short-termism is exactly why we should be very, very, very careful about invading people or supplying people or training people, because if a politician thinks it's in his short-term interests, i.e. this will get me elected for another term, they'll do something, but they never think of the long-term ramifications. And every single time we've intervened, it's been with this short-termist outlook to benefit the people in power. It never goes well. We wrecked Iraq for absolutely no reason. We wrecked Yemen, Syria, Afghanistan, Iraq. None of them have gone well. So it's exactly the same as what you're talking about.
That was a good example that it hasn't gone well.
Exactly the same. Exactly the same. It's almost everywhere we get involved. But when you try and talk about this nowadays, where we're living in this polarized time, and you've got this weird woke thing where it's hard to explain what it is. It's sort of neo-communist, also sort of fascist, because they don't let you disagree with them on anything. But basically, their worldview goes, and if you disagree with them, they call you the enemy. So you'll get people like me saying, like, maybe we should think about trying to stop the war in Ukraine and not supplying them with loads of arms. And they
Yes,
instantly go,
that's
oh my
terrible.
God.
It's terrible, especially given the fact that last year there was a bill on the European Parliament. In European Parliament, there was a bill to stop the war in Ukraine with Russia,
We
and it
shut
was
it down.
rejected. Yeah,
Yeah.
it was shut down. It was unbelievable. I was shocked because I worked in the UN and with the government and stuff like that, and it's just like they're just so keen and keep going. Wait 1 second, people. Emma Adams, thank you for subscribing to Angry Bootneck, and please, all of you, go and subscribe to him. All of you go subscribe to him. That should be City's birthday gift, because we have to support each other. No, Matthew, Matt, sorry, I'm Matt. Matt, what the reason why I think, and this has been my experience because I worked in government and diplomatic areas and stuff like that. The reason why it's short term is because it depends on the government that's ruling at that time in that country, because
Yeah.
that they have elections every 4 years. So whoever is there, or this is in the States, in most countries is 4 or 5, depending if you have a parliamentary or if you have like a president or whatever. So it depends on somebody's agenda or the government agenda
100%.
at the time, and they don't take into consideration the long lasting effects, not on the government of that they are attacking, of the country that they're invading, but on the people on the ground.
Totally. Yeah.
It's,
It
it's
really,
something that
it,
it's something that I am sure that you manage. I don't know if you managed to interact with the locals that were not military,
plenty. Yeah.
and they have other stories to tell. They're really innocent bystanders. They're
Totally.
people whose lives get wrecked, their economic system completely falling down, and they end up hating. People have to go back to the roots as to why. Nobody wants to blow themselves up. I really don't think so.
No.
It's something that's really really terrible. So no, I mean, so you were in there. Well, we've got enough conversation. So you were actually in tours of fighting and everything. Did you ever get any PTSD or anything like that?
No, I didn't know. I have my own hypothesis as to why that's such an issue now as well.
Right.
And I honestly believe it's because of politicians meddling in the training of military personnel. Because my training was torture, if I can think of no better way to put it. It is torture. Like they tortured us. Like I said, I was 99. I was a kid. They tortured us. And it's like, nothing I ever did was anywhere near as bad as my training. Like, it doesn't matter whether I was in Iraq, Afghanistan, Sierra Leone, anything. I was always going, well, at least I'm not back in training. Like, that was the worst thing I've ever done.
Oh my God.
Like,
That's
literally,
amazing.
some of the stuff I did was like crawling through the nettles with your balls out for about an hour. It's way worse than anything that you see on the deployment, right? And the politicians got involved and started saying, that's bullying, that's harassment.
Oh my
And
God. Let me tell you, I saw a TikTok. This is really funny. I saw a TikTok because they said if you had to train now, since soldiers nowadays, they would be like, you are interrupting me. You're not sending me to a safe space. This is not good lighting. I can't post because I'm not on Instagram.
yeah,
It's like,
unbelievable.
I mean, it is, you wouldn't be able to. When I was growing up, literally I remember falling off horses and stuff like that. It's like, shake it off. I've been through 2 wars. I remember we were so hungry one time here it was 1978, and they were shooting everybody, but we were really hungry, and we found out that there was flour. I know people don't understand maybe how important flour was to us, because you could make a lot of like patties and stuff like that. Was all we ate, and we have luckily mango trees and stuff like that here, right? So we ate a lot of fruit, but it runs out because there's no food in the country. So I remember with that, I went with my mom, and we ended up looking for this flour. We ended up in this house, and the shooting started. And believe it or not, it was a Marina, left-handed Marina. Remember that very well because he was
Vividly.
this side, when you're right side, you hear, and left side. And the guy, he was alone. We ended up trapped in this house, and the guy just said, to the ground, in Spanish, but I spoke English. He didn't know that, but and he says to the ground, and the guy, I remember him shooting back, and I was just eating, and I was just looking at it. I was fascinated by it, and then and I mean, I've seen dead bodies everywhere. I've seen people shot in front of me, and I was just
Mm,
lucky. And you know what? For us, I've been through earthquakes. I mean, literally in 1970, like 1972, the earthquake destroyed. I was here in Nicaragua. I wasn't in Canada. And I mean, and back then, when you are, maybe we don't have the luxury of thinking about it. You just have to go on, keep moving, like build back things, you just don't have time to sit. Oh my goodness. Oh my God. What happened
yeah.
to me? You know?
No, well, at the end of the day, you're a little bit older, and I am as well than these kids. And I firmly believe, I don't care what claptrap any modern person that gets wheeled out in front of a jury, because that's something that's totally corrupt. Like science has been corrupted. Everyone goes on about science or trust the science. Been corrupted by the politicians. In America, there was a kid who walked when he killed a load of people drunk because they said that he had affluenza. Some professional got on the stand and said, "Oh, it's a new thing. It's when you've never had any boundaries set because you're so affluent and wealthy, so you don't understand right from wrong." You must have read about that, this kid, because they can pay any professional to say anything to make the case, right? So this kid got off with basically killing a load of people because of some claptrap by some psychiatrist. So they can come out with whatever claptrap they want. I know from my life what goes on, and what goes on is if you've had a rough upbringing, or like yourself compared to someone who's spoiled now, it does immunize you against hardship. And what I was going to say about why I don't feel like I've had it, PTSD, is because we got tortured and brutalized in our training. And you need to do that to
Yeah.
soldiers. It's not being cruel. It's not bullying. It's preparing you correctly for the rigors of war. And I remember on the first exercise we went on when I was a recruit, it's like 5 weeks in. They go pretty soft on you for the first few weeks. We went out with about 65 lads, and when we came back, there was about 22 of us left. Like more than half had just gone, "Yeah, I'm not doing this." And it's not because they're bad people, it's because they haven't got the strength of mind. And you have to do that process to separate the wheat from the chaff and make sure that the ones who can't handle extremely rigorous mental and physical abuse go and get a job in a bank or work for an airline company. And perfectly great people, I never criticize anyone for failing to earn the Green Beret, right? As the credit always belongs to the man in the arena. If you tried, hats off to you. But ultimately, everybody isn't suitable for it. And as we've watered down the training and all the politicians have gone, "Oh, it's bullying, you've got to be nice to them," all we're doing is failing hundreds of thousands of kids who are going to end up possibly in a war zone and then not be entirely unprepared for it. And I firmly believe that myself and the vast majority of the friends of mine who I deployed with, because I'm in touch with dozens of them still, didn't really suffer with any of that stuff too badly because we got prepared for it. And you prepare you for it with rigorous, difficult, emotionally straining training. And it's not bullying. And I'm defending that the corporals who
It
tortured me
can't be
when I was a
bullying because
recruit.
they have to toughen you up. You have to
They
go
have
over.
to, yeah.
People who you're gonna fight, they're not gonna be throwing flowers at you.
Yeah, there's a corporal, Goose. He's friends with me on Facebook. He tortured me. He was the guy who tortured me. He's the guy who said, "Roll your trousers down to your ankles and crawl through them nettles for half an hour." And I'll defend him to the hilt if anyone was telling me, "Oh, that guy bullied you." He didn't do it because he didn't like me. He did it because he's a professional. He didn't even know me. Why would he want to bully me? He did it because he's a professional. He was preparing me for the rigors of war. And all the stuff that I saw and all the death and the explosions and the gunfights, none of it was too bad. I had a couple of bad dreams for a couple of weeks when I got back from my most dicey tour, but it was fine.
I love how you say it, dicey tour.
Dicey tour, yeah. I woke up and I was like, "Yeah, it was a dream," and I went back to sleep. And then the few months later, I didn't have any more. That's the extent of my PTSD.
Well,
And
I'm glad that you're safe. I'm glad that you went through everything, and I'm glad that you have a good sense of humor about it. I am going to ask because people are asking me about things. Because we're going to talk a little bit about Harry and Meghan, of course, but um, I wanted to delve a little bit deeper into your background. First, to know about you. Second, because people will understand that you know what you're talking about when you talk about people like Harry, right?
mm,
Because I have been, I gotta tell you, mm, I know more about Marines in the United States and in Canada, of course, you know. I don't know very much about the Army. I have researched a lot and stuff, but I haven't, I don't know very much. I do know that he would never have qualified to enter Sandhurst because he wouldn't have had the grades.
He's a plank. He's a
You know,
plank.
the Ginger one is so, you know, he really gives Ginger's a bad name, you know. It's so, but second, you know, I was thinking about it because I have a lot of friends that are in the military and people who've gone through tours and stuff like that. I have one of my uncles, he's in a wheelchair because he was shot in the back and stuff like that, you know. And he had two young children. He got, you know, he got over and stuff like that. Um and I have never seen anybody talk about number of people they killed. It's not like something you sit down to think about it.
Yeah.
I have never seen anything talk about killing your enemy as though they're chessboards. You
No,
know, I
no.
have never seen. I have to, my one of my best friends, her son is a Marine, and he's done like 4 tours or something like that. He got shot and stuff like that. And every time I talk to Robert, is his name, it's like he's very respectful, and he's not Paula, you know, because I asked him, and he goes, Paula, it's not like I'm gonna shoot there. One, two, three, and you know, it's like we don't do that. You know, we don't
No.
do that, and even if we did, we would never publicly, because I know some snipers do that in the US. You know,
Less than you'd think.
that's
Less
some,
than
yeah,
you'd
but
think.
you know, for example, you know, we had that sniper and Pierce Morgan talking about it, saying that, oh, good for Harry that he did that, you know, and it's like, and I
Mm,
would have killed more. I've killed so many, you know. I find that hugely disrespectful.
yeah.
And I find that it puts a target on people who are still in the army, in the military, number one.
Yeah.
Number two, he talks about something that he said because he wasn't a kind of like a live thing. I don't know why people pay for it to hear him be a little bitch even more. Um, 33.99 to say that the Marine or the military, UK military, looks for people in broken homes. So he was an ideal candidate. So I did a live yesterday because I was thinking, like, what the fuck are you actually saying that unstably mental people, so I said to myself yesterday, I did a live because I was thinking, so the military, the UK military, sits and goes through the civil registry to
It's
see
nonsense.
who is divorced, and they go bang bang bang, hello, is anybody there, do you, you know, do you want to join the army? Because what he's saying is that everybody who joins the military, uh, army, the UK military, is emotionally damaged, unstable, and I mean, the most dreadful thing. And he puts a target on everybody else.
It's
So,
total nonsense. It's total nonsense. So I'm getting angry. You're just telling me all this because I haven't read his book, obviously, and I haven't
oh
followed.
no, no, it's not a book.
Was it an
He did
interview
a,
he did?
it wasn't really a live because he didn't allow people to speak. It was yesterday that he did this thing with this doctor, doctor, what's his name, Pate or Bape or whatever. He's actually Hungarian Canadian,
Right.
and he did this thing that he you have to submit the questions in advance. It costs $33.99, and you got the book, his book, for free, which is not, because you know,
I just paid $33.99.
yeah, no, but people actually did pay for that. But you couldn't ask live questions. You had to
Right.
submit the
Everything
questions
had to
and he
get
would
screamed.
choose them. So he one of the things that he talked about was um, that he was a perfect candidate for the military because he came from a broken home,
It's
and he was
nonsense.
broken.
Nonsense. So basically, right, you must understand that Harry has been consumed by his ideology, right? He's an ideologue. He spews the nonsense that me again has whispered into his ear. And he is Prince of the Walk at this point, right? So you know what he's going to have an opinion about before he even says it. That's the very definition of an ideologue. It's why these people are so boring and humorless, because you know what their answer is going to be to every question. With real humans like us, you don't know. You know, we differ on every issue. I always use this example because everybody in the Twitter sphere instantly, as soon as you disagree with them on anything, just calls you a Nazi or a fascist or whatever. And they think they know what you think based off your politics, and they don't. For example, I'm pro-choice and I'm pro-euthanasia, and I'm pro lots of things that liberal woke people are pro. LGBT stuff. You know, I was pro gay marriage in the 90s before it was fashionable because I'm raised in England and it's a liberal country. But he is the definition of an ideologue. Like if I know what he's going to say, almost like it's rehearsed in response to every question I would ask him. And the reason he's saying that is because they push this ridiculous, like quasi-Marxist theory that the military-industrial complex was invented to hold up the capitalist patriarchy and absorb all of the people that are damaged and put them in the military to hold up the military-industrial complex. That's why he says that, because he's been rehearsed like a parrot to just churn out total nonsense. But the fact of the matter is, as he correctly stated, of course, nothing like that happens because it's far too complicated for something as unwieldy and incompetent as the British state to manage. So what really happens is people like me voluntarily walk into careers offices and say, can I join the military? And they go, yeah. It's no more complicated than that. Now, it is true to say that working class people make up the brunt of the military because, yeah, if you're middle class and your parents are paying for you to go to a nice university, you probably won't go in because you've got other prospects that are much higher. But the system does work for poor people like me from poor backgrounds. It's fine. But the idea that it's some sort of crazy scheme and there's people manipulating this behind the scenes is ludicrous. And when I joined up, they screen you to make sure you're not an idiot. You have to do like a proper lengthy, you do a lengthy intelligence test. And I remember the doctor saying to me,
how did he pass it? I got to tell you, how did he pass it? Because he didn't get the grades for that.
Well, they rigged it for him.
I'm quoting him from here. He said that he was a good candidate for the army because they recruit from broken homes.
Ludicrous. It's ludicrous. Just total nonsense. They rigged it for him. Me, a normal bloke, saw the adverts for the Royal Marines and the thing, saw the Luxor tourist masker and thought, yes, I want to hurt the people that do things like that. Easy. Went down to the careers office, got screened. That you have a lengthy interview with a doctor. They want to make sure that you're not completely crazy. You do a lot of tests and things, and then you go down for a potential Royal Marines course, and they talk you through a week of training and physical and mental stuff. And then they take you in. The idea that there's some sort of grand conspiracy to hire broken people is completely ludicrous, and there isn't any evidence for it. As you said, what do you think they're doing? Like combing through medical records and going, oh, this guy's completely off his box. Let's go and recruit him. I mean, it's completely ludicrous to even suggest that it happens. Just nonsense. It's ideological gobbledygook.
I got to ask you something, because from what Harry has said very publicly, he was not only a recreational drug user, he was heavily into drugs. Yeah. I would assume that you guys get sometimes drug tests and stuff like that.
All the time, yeah.
And how can this guy have passed those things if he admits that he was doing cocaine and marijuana?
Yeah, well, they'll let him off, won't they? They'll let him off. If it was Prince Harry's piss test, they went, oop, get rid of that. They do. You get CDT, compulsory drugs testing, and you'll be on a camp. And then suddenly it comes over the tannoy that CDT are on board and nobody's allowed to leave the base. The whole thing gets put on lockdown and everybody gets tested. I know, because a mate of mine got thrown out for doing coke. He had a particularly heavy weekend in Prague, got very, very plastered and was stupid enough to put some up his nose when he was drunk. Got back, got caught, threw out, straight out. They don't tolerate it. So for Harry, just like with his IQ test, they've obviously lost the results in his. It is. I mean, it's so obvious, isn't it? He is a plank. But it also makes perfect sense because A, he's an absolute log. And B, he acts like he's on drugs all the time. If you were to tell me, pick someone who's a glue bag in the military, Prince Harry would be top of the list because he's an idiot. So it all comes together. Like so many things that are true, logic dictates that it's true. Clearly, he was doing drugs.
He says that one of the reasons why so many people in the United Kingdom were not supportive of our troops was because they assumed that everybody that was serving was for the war. But no, once you sign up, you do what you're told. So there was a lot of us that didn't necessarily agree or disagree, but you were doing what you were trained to do. You were doing what you were sent to do.
Well, I honestly do have positive things to say about the UK military. I think the politicians are absolute scum, and he's right to say that you ultimately sign up and do your duty. But it's everything's black and white with him. there is a degree of truth to it that there was people that dissented. But again, the UK military being, in my experience, a good place to be, certainly for a directionless young man, dissent is tolerated. I'm pretty sure, yeah, not everybody who was in wanted to invade Iraq and thought it was a good idea, but you do your duty when you're a military man. That is true, right? You don't have a choice in the matter, unless you want to be like a conscientious objector and just completely refuse to go in, or really dig your heels in. Like I'm sure some people did. There was a famous case in York, a lad called Joe Glenton, who was a veteran who refused to go, and he got punished for it. He got discharged. You can do that as well. And again, Britain's a fair country. If you really didn't want to go, you could dig your heels in, probably go through a court martial and end up getting throughout the military. We tolerate dissent in the UK. Again, it's everything with him is just this whiny victim mentality because he's been conditioned to say it, as if the UK is like
conditioned by whom? Because he didn't used to be like this before.
Well, and that's why everybody hates me again, don't they? Because I think.
This is where I question things. I know for a fact that Buckingham Palace used to spin a lot of shit for Harry.
Yeah, of course they did.
They get used to doing a lot of stuff and getting away with it.
I'll talk to my missus about this.
He doesn't have that protection, but we're seeing the real Harry without the Buckingham Palace PR machine. That's what I believe we're seeing.
I think the reason, like you've heard people say that it's misogyny is the reason that Meghan seems to get more abuse than Harry. But in the defense of the misogynists, I just want to say, I do feel as if, in my opinion, he is just thick. We know he's thick. He's always been thick. Everyone knew it in England. He had to cheat on all his exams or conveniently lose the results. He's thick. He's a plank. So if you've got someone who is stupid, it's easier for them to get manipulated. So in the defense of the people who are a bit more on her back than his, that's kind of what I think. I think ultimately he's dense and she's manipulating him. So I'm not, of course you've got to blame him because he's still not like standing for himself. But the reason Meghan gets more shit is because of that. It's because he is just a plank. And if you're born and raised in the UK and you know he's been a plank since he could crawl, it's hard to blame him for it all. So people think that she's just indoctrinated him into a woke ideology. And now he spews the talking points. And like I said, and he is an ideologue. He has been conditioned. Because I know what he thinks about every single subject. You can bring up anything. Climate change, I know what he thinks. Extinction Rebellion, abortion, gun control, anything. I know what he thinks because he's been conditioned to just spew out the same.
But you mean not conditioned? No, okay. From what I understand, what you're saying, he's been conditioned now.
Yeah, in relatively recently.
Before he used to be a bloke, hunting, shooting, drinking,
doing what he liked,
all kinds of things. He was just a regular bloke who was very happy to be very privileged.
Yeah, he was,
and getting away with it. That's what the impression I got. And then whenever he was in trouble, his family's PR machine got together, and that was it. He used to be a very happy bloke trying to get his dick onto every woman he could because
as you do when you're 20.
No, but because of his position, apparently he there's rumors that he, because of his position, he was able to get a black book into anybody and people would take his call. I mean, the fact that he stayed at Courtney Cox's house, in spite of the fact that he didn't know her, and then he just trashed her on the thing, saying that she.
Oh, I think Paula must be on the wireless. I've lost her.
Hello?
What
I'm saying is, like, do you think Courtney Cox would allow you to go and stay in her home for 2-3 days?
Oh, no, he's obviously privileged, but all I'm saying is basically from the age of 0 to like 30, he was just a self-trimming, privileged arsehole, and now he's the prince of the war because he's been conditioned to that mentality by his wife. I'm not saying he's a nice person, I'm just saying he's dense, and I think he's easily led by whoever's handling him at the time. That's why I think she gets more crap than he does. But yeah, I'm not defending the bloke. I think he's a complete logger.
No, I mean, I understand what you're saying. I mean, I really do believe that I don't watch I watch very few channels, but some of my viewers sent me something saying that Lady C spoke about how the reason why they were evicted from Frogmore was because they were a threat. You know what happened in the Murdoch trials, right? You know, it's gold. I've actually been following it, right? How people can kill in their own family and stuff like that, and how this is why they were evicted. And my whole point has been they were not evicted because in order for you to be evicted, you have to be living at the premises,
Yeah.
and the contract still has to be running, and you are kicked out within 24 hours or 3 days max.
Yeah. They didn't send the bailiffs round, did they?
Yeah.
Sort of throw him out. No.
They
Yeah.
didn't throw their stuff out. So they're not evicted. It's simply that their lease is not being renewed. If, from what I understand, they might be getting the 2.4 million pounds that they never pay back.
Mm.
So they were not evicted, and they're allowed to stay until after the coronation, which hints to the point that they will stay at Frogmore Cottage. So people are talking about it. So they were saying, oh, the ladies see they were high risk and Prince William didn't want them anywhere around. If that were the case, they wouldn't invite them at all. If you know that these people are a high risk and putting everybody else at risk, why would you invite them to? I mean, from what I understand, and call me crazy, you would try to minimize risk, especially in this high in these occasions, right? And not only that, you know, I found out that the most viewed event of modern history was the Queen's funeral.
Oh, really?
Yes, live viewing. 5.1 billion people
It's mad.
live viewing. Yes, I was crying my eyes out because I really loved her. I know people talk trash about her and everything, but I really loved her. I think she was a spectacular lady in a very man's world, and she, you know, I loved her neutrality. I love her cheekiness. I loved everything about her. You know that she has
She
fucked
was
up.
good.
Yeah,
Well,
she has fucked up sons. It's not, you know.
I think the monarchy is in serious trouble, mate, because what a lot of people don't realise around the world is the UK is not hardcore staunch royalists. It's basically 80% of people like tradition and our own culture. And so even if you're not all into it, you tolerate it, if not ambivalently. Because you could call me an ambivalent monarchist. I don't love the royal family. I'm a bloke, right? It's like we don't really care. The only people in the UK who absolutely love them is the old ladies who collect all the merchandise. You know, you go around your nana's house and you laugh at her and say, "What have you got that bloody daft plate for?" Because she'll have, like, you know, Charles and Diana wedding plate on the mantelpiece, sort of thing. It's like old women. The majority of people are like, it's worked perfectly fine for 1,000 years, so let's just keep it. That's how most people feel about the monarchy. They don't. Some absolutely love them, and some absolutely hate them. But the vast majority of people are just like, it's fine. It's worked all right so far. Just leave how it is.
I'm not a royalist. There's a difference,
Yeah.
though. I don't.
Between a
I'm a
monarchist, yeah.
monarchist.
Yeah, it is different.
There's a big difference. I do believe that the monarchy as a neutral organization or institution is kick-ass, because you are able, the queen was able to bring Putin, you know, or the Chinese, you know, because she remained neutral, and wherever politicians fail, because the queen kept mum, they were able to go to her and visit her and try to be a bridge, you know, and talk about things.
Yeah.
But now I feel that King Charles is not.
Exactly. And that's what I'm saying. I'm a reluctant monarchist. I don't love, yeah, exactly. I'm not a royalist. I don't care about the lives, and I'm not interested in the day-to-day. But I'm fine with the monarchy. It works all right, and there can be I feel as if there's a utility in having somebody above the dirty, slimy politicians.
Exactly.
So, like, if Uncle Sam could be personified as a bloke with a big hat on, and before Biden wanted to do anything, he just had to go and see him and say, "I'm doing this week, Uncle Sam." I feel like that's a good thing. It's just another...
Especially because the monarchy, they don't have an expiration date. So they don't have to worry about agendas, you know?
Yeah.
So this is why the neutrality was great.
And that's what I mean. I'm a reluctant monarchist. It's fine. But the second they start getting political, they will circle the drain. And you're going to get all these people who, I would say the vast majority of British men are like me, especially. You'll get all these people who are like, yeah, it's fine. Suddenly they'll turn against it. And the thing that's criminal about it is, as usual, it's the idiots in power chasing the support of people that will always hate them. So Trump managed to win in America by playing to his base. He said, who cares what this lot say? I'm here for you guys. He played to his base, which any sensible person does. What the lunatics do nowadays, because these people they call woke have managed to take over everything, the media, the television networks, the radio waves. They pander to them to try and win them over. But those people are by definition extremists. They're not like the 80% that can sway either way. And they will always hate them no matter what they do. And Boris Johnson did the exact same, the Prime Minister of Britain. He's doing the same as what Charles did, is he turned his back on his base and said, I can take them for granted. They're always going to support me. This is clearly what Boris Johnson did. He thought the Conservative voters will always support me. So what I'll do is I'll play all out to try and get these woke people into my team, and then I'll definitely win easily. And what they don't realize is no matter what you say, no matter what you do, they will always hate you. So Prince Charles is doing the same thing Johnson did. He's trying to win over the ardent Republicans, the people that despise the monarchists, these wokists. So he's gone all political. He's doing all the climate change thing. He's doing all of the the stuff, that the LGBT trans stuff, all the woke talking points. Charles is going all in on, thinking, I can take all the monarchists for granted and I'll try and win over some new converts. And it's lunacy, because the people he's trying to win over will always despise him. Doesn't matter what he says or what he does. So if he had any sense, he'd ignore play to his base.
I agree with you. I completely agree with you. You know, and the fact that he invited Harry and Meghan to the coronation.
Lunacy.
You know, and then after Harry did this interview where he talks about how King Charles never hugged him, and this is why he's so traumatized. I did a little TikTok about, and you know,
Nonsense.
I found so many pictures. You go and Google Prince Charles hugging
loads
Harry.
of them. Yeah,
I mean,
loads of them.
I had to I only posted like 10 because and I posted some from different stages because there's
out on his bike with him and all sorts. Yeah.
And it's like, are you telling me that because his father, this is the most privileged guy? So and the fact, and then to me, and this is to me, because unfortunately right now, as you said, we don't live in regular times. The message Harry, after he did this interview with this doctor yesterday, he posted that it leaked that he got an email from Palace that he's invited to the coronation. So what is the message that sends to the entire world? That no matter what he does, no matter who he defames, no matter who he slanders, no matter who he endangers, he will always be back there. Because just like the Queen was the most watched event in modern history, the coronation is going to be, and guess who's going to be front and center? And you know what really bothers me? That the media is getting behind this, saying, "Oh, King Charles is just being doing the dignified." That's not having any dignity. And you know, people talk about them being evicted. If you go to the Royal UK website, it says that Harry and Meghan still reside at Frogmore Cottage at their official residence.
Nonsense. It is. They're like, seriously, they're in trouble. Because, like I said, I'm at this point, being a centrist person, I've been a Tory voter in England for the last sort of 10 years. In my youth, like most young people, I was into Labour. And then in the last 10, 12 years, I've been Conservative voter because they're closest to the centre. And because of the behaviour of Boris Johnson constantly trying to quote to placate the woke, and now Rishi Sunak and Liz Truss and all of them, because they've gone so far over those people and took the base for granted, I will never vote for them again. And as a result, 2024 is going to see the Labour Party destroy them and win the election. And the same exact thing is going to happen with the monarchy. I've been pro-monarchy, reluctantly pro-monarchy my whole life. The second he went political, I'm like, get rid of it then. And it'll break my heart.
Political. He's always been political. He just promised not, when he was Prince Charles, he promised not to be so after he was, when he became king. But
get rid of it then. Get rid of it then. Who cares?
What do you think? What do you think? Okay. We have Harry and Meghan Markle, who both of them have their children, if they have any, completely isolated from any part of either side of all their families. Okay, so for example, Meghan Markle is estranged from all of her black side of the family.
Yeah.
And her white side of the family. Weirdly, she only talks to her mother and her sister's daughter, strange sister's daughter, who's suing her, which is completely fucked up. And then we have Harry, who the Spencers want nothing to do with, and the Windsors want nothing to do with him. And they have these two children with no extended family members. The only ones is Princess Eugenie, Sarah Ferguson,
Yeah.
and
Gotta feel bad for the kids, haven't you?
well, actually, if you go to the United Nations Children's Rights, one of the, and even in the United States, the reason extended families are right of children to have relations with extended family members, because a lot of the abuse happens from the direct family members a lot of times. So if, for example, if a child does not have any other um, sources or contact with other people, they're basically trapped to the people that holds them and that are abusing them. So this is why extended family is a right: grandparents, uncles, aunts, cousins. Because if people come around and they know a certain type of behavior of children, and suddenly they see that the children are behaving differently, something is weird, they can talk about it. But
Yeah.
they have isolated those children. And I was watching, for example, how now Harry kept talking how the clicks of the camera made his blood boil because, of course, his mother, and then now he's calling back grid with Meghan Markle. And he actually believes that Meghan Markle is some sort of A-lister. They went to this restaurant 2 hours away from Montecito in the rain, and he got out of the car and he made ample space, like, let the star come out. Did you see that?
I didn't know. No, like I said, I don't follow the personal lives.
And something that's incredible. I was watching it. You know that I was watching it because I don't know if he has low self-esteem, but then this live thing he did yesterday. He's talking how Meghan Markle is an amazing woman, his partner.
Well, like I said, he's easy led, isn't he? He's easy led. He believes what she tells him.
Does he not realize that he is? Because I believe that royals are not A-listers; they are above that. A-listers die to be with them.
Yeah. He's
You know
a
what I
plank,
mean?
isn't he? Yeah. She was like a D-list celebrity as well. She was like a Price is Right
I'm
girl.
Canadian and I'm in Toronto, and I never heard of her. She has never owned a home. The Suits was renting a little house for her, a leased car as well. And this woman, but I'm shocked because I'm thinking he got out of the car and he's like he almost fell backwards because he wanted to make space and to make sure that she was photographed.
Yeah. He's a bit of an idiot. Like, as we say back home, he's as thick as a doctor's sandwich.
What do you think it's happening? What do you think? Do you think it's correct that, given what he said in the book about the Taliban, how many people he's killed?
Yeah.
Because I know he had bodyguards when he went to war, which you guys don't.
Yeah,
I know that he was like he said that he prefers the cockpit. He did a questionnaire with Stephen Colbert. Yeah, but he was not actually piloting the helicopter. He was a gunner in one of the safest helicopters on Earth.
Yeah, if you look at the casualty statistics, how many people who died flying an Apache in the British military, I think it was none. I don't think we ever lost one. It's not like, and he talks like he's, Billy Big Bollocks, like he was marching into the enemy on his own, sort of like Johnny Rambo. No, he's just a knobhead, isn't he? He's just a knobhead. But like I said, I don't get as into the personal lives as you, but to me, that's what it is. He's easily led.
But to me, it's not a personal life. You see, to me, it's not a personal life. To me, it's that I don't understand why Parliament has not stepped in. Because you see, everything they do, it affects negatively. Whatever you may say, when they went into that fucking Oprah thing and they accused the UK and the monarchy and the staff of being racist, it had huge backlash. It had diplomatic consequences. It had a lot of repercussions. And then for Harry to come 2 years later with Tom Bradby, who's a plank, and say, "Oh, I never said they were racist." Wait a minute. You had Oprah the next day that it was the Queen or Prince Philip. Why didn't you just say they weren't racist to begin with?
Well, when you lie, you tell so many lies you forget they're out to keep on top of, aren't they? That's why you're supposed to not tell lies so you don't get caught out. But he's too dumb to know that. I think that ultimately he's been caught out on a national stage. And as I said, I think that this will possibly lead to the downfall of the entire monarchy. That was the pebble in the pond that causes the ripples, because it's just shown them up as being incapable of being politically impartial. And him, it's not even such a big deal with him because he's just the prince, but his dad, I guess your son, you've always got a bond with that's special, and that'll be what sees us off. Because if he's leaning on him and he can't bring himself to do what needs to be done and just cut him out like a cancer, that'll eat away at the monarchy. And I don't think he's going to do it because he's his son and he obviously hasn't got the stones to do it, to do what needs to be done and just totally cut the cord. So I think it'll bring down the monarchy. Me, I do. I've gone from liking the monarchy to disliking the monarchy. And he's got all political. And all the people like me who keep it afloat, the working class masses that always tolerated it, whether either side of the fence that we're on, they're just going to go, we'll get rid of it then. And like I said, I will miss it and I will regret it because it's an institution that's been there for over 1,000 years and has always been there. But if he's going to start, just like I did with the Conservative Party, if he's going to start gobbing off, getting hyper political, get rid of it. Get rid of it. I'm at that point, and I've always been, like I said, I've been a reluctant monarchist for the last 25 years. But at this point, I'm like, who cares? Get rid of it. Like, if they're gonna ram it down our throats constantly, I'd rather we just bin them, and then we'll be another cold, boring, corrupt politicians. Yeah, I mean, you end up with a president. This is another reason why I've been a reluctant monarchist, because it's like the Queen really was above it all, and even if you're working class and poor, you were like, well, she's got nothing in common with me, but she doesn't do any harm. You couldn't dislike the Queen because she never, ever said anything that would rankle. You know what I mean? Ever. So even, like I said, reluctant, you'd have Republicans in the North who were like, I don't really like the royal family, but she's all right. Because she was apolitical. And when this knobhead, King Sausage Fingers, starts going, gobbing off about all these conscientious issues, people are just going to go, you know what? Get shot of him then. Who cares? And it'll be started by Harry and me again. It's totally like a cancer does. You need to excise it or it spreads, it metastasizes. That's what Mardy arse has done to the royal family. So again, I'm backtracking and going on Prince Harry again. But it's Mardy arse.
Yeah, it's true. It is true. The problem is not what Harry and Meghan are doing. The problem is that they are not held accountable, and it makes the institution in Parliament weak.
So it spread. That's what I'm saying. But it started with her.
Gangrene. I call them gangrene because you can't just have a little bit of gangrene. That fucking thing.
Exactly. Yeah. And that's it, because they have an attachment to them because he's his son, and the Parliament has an attachment to the monarchy because it's been there 1,000 years. So nobody's completely impartial. So none of them are willing to be the surgeon who goes, cut this tumour out, get shot of it. We need to have a total blackout. And just the chat might be confused. Mardy in the North means bad-tempered. Like if your missus is being Mardy, she's in a bad mood, she's being moody. So I call her Meghan Mardy arse because she's just like horrible and bad-tempered.
Thanks for
Mardy arse. Mardy arse is going to kill the monarchy because Charles hasn't got the stones to cut them out completely, and it's going to spread. And then all the people who kept them on the throne and reluctantly supported them, either side of the fence, which is, like I said, 85% of the UK is like that. You get like 7.5% will be like hardcore monarchists, and 7.5% will be hardcore Republicans. But the vast majority of people are just like, it's fine, leave them where they are. The second he starts getting political, he's done. So Mardy arse, in 20 years' time, they'll look over the history books and they'll say, yep, that's what done the British monarchy in. Nearly 2,000 years, and it got killed by a talentless yo-yo knicker Jezebel from across the pond. That's what did the British monarchy.
Again, I don't think it's what she's doing, is the fact that she's not held accountable.
She won't be.
Because I actually did a video this morning and I was talking about, the bullying investigation that they did about her. That is basically, I equated it to this. It's like the police saying, the police is not going to investigate it. We're going to have private investigators investigate a crime, and then we're not going to release the report. And even if they're found guilty, the victims are not going to get any justice. So this is what's happened right now, because the staff is paid or subsidized by the UK taxpayers. So the investigation should have been public, and the findings should have been public, and whatever happened should have been held accountable. So basically, can you imagine if somebody came and said, somebody killed this like for example, the Murdoch trial right now, instead of having the police do it, we're going to do it in house. If the family is going to hire investigators, we're going to find out what's happened, and we're not going to release the report, and we're just going to move on.
Yeah.
I know that the Murdoch trials is something completely extreme, but I'm just saying it's just as, it doesn't matter the range of the crime or anything, because abuse or whatever. It's the fact that this should have been done publicly. If this had been something, for example, in the Ministry of Foreign Affairs or Parliament in the UK, this would have been investigated and would have been very public. The results would have been made public.
Even that, though, I'm cynical about, right? Because corruption spreads. This is why she's so dangerous, because she's managed to do that identity politics thing, which is so powerful and all-consuming that nothing can stand against it, this ideology. They just can't. I'll give you a good example. The grooming gangs, you might not be aware of in Canada or Nicaragua, but basically there was systemic, endemic child torture and rape by tens of thousands of Pakistani men. That nobody says that. They always say Asian because it sounds nicer if it's like not. It's Pakistani, Bangladeshi. Basically, it's the followers of one religion. I won't go on about it because if you even mention it on YouTube, you end up getting binned.
Yeah, get crushed.
The adherents of one religion were purposely, systematically torturing and raping children because they didn't follow their ideology. And they told us this. They told the police this. They told the papers this. They said, we see these women as worthless trash because they don't follow our faith, so we can do with them what we like. And they systematically tortured and raped tens of thousands of children, and the British state was complicit in doing nothing about it because they're so terrified of inflaming racial tensions or being deemed to be racist that in this day and age. And I understand it because unquestionably there were serious issues with race in like the 60s and the 70s, early 80s. But we like everything in politics, it's a pendulum. It went too far one way and then it went too far the other. And now, if you're willing to look over or even assist people torturing and raping children, the most innocent people in your society, you will stand up against nothing. Nothing is worse than torturing and raping children. And when they played the race card, nobody would touch it with a barge pole. So if we won't stand up against children getting tortured and abused and raped, what are we going to do when it's something minor, like Meghan lying, saying people are being racist? We're gonna accept it all. And it's the irony is, it's not like she looks like Whoopi Goldberg. I think everybody in Britain thought she was Italian. I didn't think she was even.
No, I swear to you, I actually.
No one did.
They said that she was Latino, and or that she was playing Latino roles, and I'm like, no. And I remember when I googled her ass, and I'm like, oh, please don't let her be Latin. Please don't let her be Latin.
No.
Thank God she's part black because her mother is biracial. Her mother is also mixed race because she has white and black.
So she's very, very. She's about. If I went on the tanning tubes for 20 minutes, I'd look darker than her. It's not like she's a Maasai tribeswoman. And the point is, we cannot stand against it because of the sins of our forebears. And looking back at the past, we are not willing to stand up to them and say you're a liar. There's been so many incidents of it. That Ngozi Fulani getting that nice old lady fired.
I was so pissed at what they did to Lady Santasi. I was so pissed about that.
She didn't do anything wrong, but we cannot stand against it. We cannot muster a defense against it. And that's what I'm saying. If you won't speak up about it when little kids are getting tortured and raped, you'll speak up about nothing. So we are done. I'm what they call black-pilled in the memosphere. I have got no hope at all. I think we're doomed, and all you can do is chuckle and laugh as everything burns around you, because that's my point. If you won't stand up for tortured children, you'll stand up for nothing. So whenever they play that card, we've already lost. That's why the nice old lady got fired by Fulani, the race charlatan. That's why everyone's. But
her name is Helen.
Yeah, she's not called. She's called like Helen Smith or something, isn't she?
Yeah, she's ridiculous. She's actually, and she was caught in a YouTube thing in a video where she says, "I'm gonna dress up like this because when I dress up like this, I mean, she was dressed normally, like
it's lunacy.
And she was dressed up, and then she puts it on Ngozi Fulani when her name is Helen or something like that from I don't know. Yeah, I mean,
we're done. We've got no defense against it at all. And that's the point I always make. If kids are fair game, we're done. and
You know,
Meghan can do whatever she
I
likes.
gotta tell you something. I was talking to this. I'm very good friends with P. Dinah, right? And you know, Megan's Netflix thing. She's actually outraged that when she went to the United Kingdom, she was treated like a black woman because she never faced racism, right? But then in 2012, she said that she grew up with racism, and then she's giving all these speeches about her. And then 1992, the riots in LA, and you know, all of it, all
Paula,
the bullshit made up.
if you're going to catalogue her individual lies, we'll be here until next
No, no, no.
Christmas.
But what I wanted to
She
get
just
about this,
lies constantly.
no, but what I wanted to get at this is like at this is something that to me I do not understand, and maybe it's part of the woke world that we're in. That this is a woman that my friend who's black, P. Dinah, she's another YouTuber. She gets trashed, and I mean she's proper black. She gets trashed in such regular basis because she keeps calling out Meghan Markle, called a traitor.
Yeah, it's
And
lunacy.
Meghan Markle herself admit that she's never been lived a black life until she came to the UK. And let me tell you, Matt, if being black like Meghan Markle, I want to be black like Meghan Markle in the UK. I want to get over 1 million pounds of clothing. You know, I want to be able to travel in jets. I want to be able to have access to the royal family's little black book.
Well, the statistics prove you're right. Exactly what we've talked about. Saying how the pendulum's swinging, because the statistics are irrefutable. The UK is not just not racist. The UK is aggressively anti-racist to the point where they stitch up the natives to look after everybody else. There's a BBC story, and the BBC's left wing, that quotes the figures. I put it on one of my streams a couple of weeks ago. If you're on free school meals in the UK, that's when you're in real poverty. Like, I wasn't on free school meals. I was a single parent. My dad was just a sheet metal worker, but he earned money. So I wouldn't have qualified for free school meals. You really got to be poor to qualify for free school meals in the UK. The bottom of the barrel. Of the kids on free school meals in the UK, only 10% of white kids, it's even lower if you just do boys, go to university. But in the UK, black African and Pakistani and Indian kids on free school meals, 60% of them go to university. So they're literally throwing resources at them. You're way better off being black in the UK than you are looking like me. 100%. I always talk about the fire department in Middlesbrough, my hometown, because it's an impoverished place. One of the best jobs for working class lads who haven't got a college education is the fire department, because you're a government employee. It's quite high status. You don't need to have a college degree to do it. It's well paid. You get plenty of time off. So everybody goes for the fire department. And in my hometown, the fire department is, they turn up when there's a fire. And even though it's 99% white, the town, when the fire department turns up, it looks like the cast of the Cosby Show. Like, every single person there is black. It's clearly better for you in the UK than it is. Oh no, I think Paul has gone again. Or it might be me. Who knows? I guess that's the internet connection. I'll sit and finish my tea. Oh no, I've already finished my tea as well. All right, I'll sit quietly for a moment.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Sorry about that. It's just my internet that's pretty shitty. But no, sorry. What were we talking about? I
Chat.
apologize to people. My internet is pretty crap. So, what were you saying before we got interrupted?
I was saying that contrary to Meghan's ludicrous claims, the UK has actually done massive things to make up for any historical crimes because the statistics and the data are irrefutable. Judging at the university admissions, the amount of assistance you get from the state, council housing, welfare benefits, and education, you are better off being a person of colour in the UK than you are being
I'm gonna agree with you on that.
pasty, blue-eyed white boy. It is understandable, and I'm not whinging about it because, like I said, it's a pendulum, and it is understandable. After all the bad things that went on in the past, I do get it, but I just don't understand the lack of gratitude. I wish people would just say, we recognize the wrongs were in the past and we've tried to make up for it. So let's get back to the 1990s when people were more colorblind and everybody got on with each other a lot better. The constant race baiting and rubbing it in your face of people like Ngozi Fulani, where they look at poor white lads like me, who've everything we've ever earned has been from the sweat of our backs through toil. And they laugh at you and say, "Oh no, you guys are oppressing me." It's total lunacy when people like Meghan Markle and Oprah Winfrey can tell you they're oppressed. You know, my dad was a steel metal worker. My mum died of cancer when I was a little kid. I've never had any assistance from the state, and it's fine. I'm an old ass man now, but point is, you never get any assistance when you look like me. You have to earn everything you get. And you're on the bottom rung, and then you get two millionaires living in the multi-millionaire paradise in Montecito, living in £10 million houses, telling blokes like me, unarmed, one-armed homeless men and bus drivers, "You bastards are keeping us down." And again, I feel as if it's on purpose because it's linked to this neo-communist worldview where they only get the glorious revolution if they antagonize everybody and make people hate each other and bitter enough and resentful enough so they'll go to it in the streets. And I feel like that's why we've gone backwards. We need to go back to about 1998 when people were just rubbing along quite well and every single thing wasn't made into a cudgel about race or sexuality or gender or disability or any of these tick boxes. And just get back to business of getting along with each other and not obsessing over what you happen to be. Because if you really think about it, they are just ludicrous things you can just pluck from the air. Like all these things they put on the victimhood pyramid. Why is it obesity or height or age or skin color? You could pick foot size or eye color, or you haven't got blue eyes, therefore we hate you. It's like you could pick anything, hair color, anything. It seems so arbitrary to pluck these random things out of the air when you're in a position like Oprah Winfrey. I mean, we had a black president for 8 years and they still go, "Oh, 2023 as a black man in America." It's like there was a black man running the free world for
And the ones who are
8
complaining the
years.
most about it is Michelle Obama and Barack Obama, saying that there's still a lot of racism.
It's ludicrous. And like I'm saying, if they said there was terrible racism in the 70s, I'm glad we moved past it. You'd agree with them 100% and say, "I'm glad we have. It was a terrible time." But when the black president's been and gone and he had a whole 2 terms, it's lunacy in 2023 to go, "Oh, being a black man in America." It's like 100 years ago, you guys were getting balls to the wall. 200 years ago, people were property. You were literally property. And now, years after a black president ran the free world, they're still going to me, "Oh, it sucks to be a black man in America." It's like, how? How? Tell me how. The statistics prove them wrong. Even the police ones are wrong in America. If you really look at the statistics, the statistics prove that you're less likely to survive a police interaction when you're a white guy at this point, and common sense demands that you don't even have to see the statistics, because think of it logically. If you're a copper in America now and you pull me over, you know you're not going to get hauled over the coals if you go, "Who cares?" and put a bullet in my head. Because there's loads of white guys who got killed. I can reel off some of the names.
I know. My cousin is a sheriff in California.
But yeah, I did a video about one a couple of years ago because it was horrific. I forget his name now. I made a big video about it. Some poor bastard was drunk in a hotel, on his knees, crying his eyes out because all these American coppers had the guns on him and they just blew him away. The cop got fired, but he never got jailed. It was murder. And this poor bastard got killed. He had a wife and kids. Nobody knows his name. I've even forgot it. So I'm even embarrassing myself because I made a video years ago. It happens all the time. And then George Floyd, what happened to him? Shocking.
Career criminal.
But it only became headline news because he was black. If that exact same thing happened to me, nobody would have heard about it. And everybody knows it. So you don't even need to know the statistics. You just need to have common sense and think, if I was a copper in Los Angeles and I pulled over Matty and I pulled over and his mate was black, sat next to him, and I've got to shoot one of them, which one am I going to put a bullet in the head of? It ain't going to be the black guy because he knows he's going to be in serious trouble if he shoots him. As usual, Whitey is the easy option. So it's fine. I understand it. But please don't sit in a palace on a big chair with some bloke wafting you saying, oh, it's so hard being a black woman in America. Shut up. Just shut up and do some work.
But Megan says that she's never been a black woman in America. She was never treated like one until she came to the UK.
Nonsense. Just victimhood currency. It makes them look good.
It makes me wonder because the new narrative nowadays is that Doria raised her as a single black mom in a black neighborhood, and yet she never had that conversation because Doria went on Netflix crying, I should have had that conversation with Meghan Markle. So if we're to believe the new narrative, Meghan was in a black poor neighborhood, surrounded by black people, raised by black people, and she would have really stand out because she's white. And nobody would have that conversation with her.
Well, she isn't to be believed, is she? I'd sooner believe a Chinese Rolex than Meghan Markle. It's just everything she says is nonsense.
I actually been watching. I've rewatched your video about the Argentinian soccer team. I mean, I was laughing my ass off about that because especially, nobody dares question a nation or Korean, to be specific, Oriental or a football team that doesn't have a big black guy or a white guy. Nobody does. But apparently, and it's true in Argentina, the population is mostly white.
Overwhelmingly. And again, this is why I feel like I'm taking crazy pills, because I don't think I'm a genius. I just read the paper every day, and every day I'm going, this is mental. It's mental. You don't have to, like I said, you don't have to be a statistician or a fantastic orator. You just have to have common sense. And you read something like that, and that I'm the only one talking about this makes me feel like I'm completely mental. Because it's like the country's 99% white. So where are they going to dig up all the black footballers? You'd have to send hit squads into Brazil, put a sack over some heads and kidnap them and bring them to Argentina. Because it's lunacy. And it's in everything now because of this ludicrous woke ideology. The police is a good example in England, right? So statistically, blacks are a small majority in England, a minority. They're about 10% of the UK, right? But then all of a sudden they go, right, 50% of the police department needs to be black. Oh, yeah, and at least 30 of them need to be women. And if you go to places like up north, you'll be in a town where there's probably only about 11 black women in the entire town. So literally every single one of them 11 is going to have to be a copper if you're going to hit your target. So they could roll in morbidly obese, haven't got the IQ to do 2 + 2, complete log. And they will have to put them in uniform and get them out on the streets because there's nobody there.
Yeah, and
it's like basic mathematics.
No, I completely agree with you. I was laughing my ass off because, but for some reason, they only attack the West. You don't criticize Muslims or anything like that. You get canceled, literally, or trans men, or I don't know what the fuck you want to call them.
And you know what I'm saying?
It really pisses me off.
It's especially easy to prove with the football thing because think about it, winning the World Cup is extremely, extremely difficult. You have to be meritocratic and only get the very, very best footballers you've got. The idea that a country that's 98 or 99% white could just fill the team with black players and still win the World Cup is complete lunacy. It's possible they could find a handful of decent black players in Argentina, but they would not win the World Cup because they'd be like, he shouldn't be in the national team. He's a decent footballer, but he shouldn't be in the national team. Put him in anyway because he's black. I mean, it's crazy.
You have black players in the UK and football, and it's still,
Yeah, well, because it's not about your color, it's about your talent. Pele was amazing and he was
Yeah.
black. Maradona was amazing and he's white. It's got nothing
Cristiano,
to do
I'm a
with your skin
Cristiano
color.
fan, right? I'm a huge Cristiano fan. So
Oh, yeah, you are right. Yeah, he's amazing as well. I
thank
prefer
you.
Ronaldo to
For
Messi.
saying that.
I do.
Oh,
I
thank
do
you.
think
Thank
that.
you
I
for
always
saying
tell
that.
everyone that. Yeah.
The huge scandal, the huge scandal about, what's going on with FIFA and everything in Barcelona, that they were paying the arbiters.
Corruption everywhere. Yeah.
No, it's
But
terrible. I wanted to talk to you about something. I know it's probably very controversial, but I want to talk to you about it anyways, because you did bring it up. I know you got a lot of flack about this. Shamima
okay.
Begum.
Oh yeah, I did get flack for that. Yeah.
Let me tell you something. I don't know if you know much about Nicaragua, but 222 people have been expelled from the country. The United States sent a plane to pick them up, and they lost with their citizenship taken away. Spain has offered to give them a citizenship because basically they're in no man's land. These are
Mm,
people from Nicaragua, born in Nicaragua. Their family have been in Nicaragua all their lives, clearly,
yeah.
but they had different political views, completely different than Shamima Began, who was a 15-year-old girl who went to join ISIS or whatever the fuck she did, right?
Yeah.
I don't know if you know much about me, but because my ex-husband was very powerful in the Ministry of Foreign Affairs in Norway. He's one of the top. I was going to speak Norwegian. He was one of the top Norwegian things, and I had dare want to divorce him, and and then he accused me of all these things, and I had a red alert. Interpol actually tried to block it because I won all the trials, right?
Yeah.
And I want them everything. And I had a red alert from, but Interpol, the Secretary General of Interpol, actually opposed it. And when he did agree, because of Norway's insistence of having me on a red alert, and my son in a yellow alert, even though Norway knew where my son was, because they started three different trials under international treaties, so they knew where Hendrik was. You know what I mean? It's not like he
Yeah.
was missing anywhere. They agreed to put it back on, but it wasn't mandatory. It was not mandatory for countries to obey it. And there was a footnote that said, this issue, these issues have been already dealt with in court. However, because of Norway, they still want to go ahead. It was something that's very unique.
Right.
And and I know that Shamima began at 50. I know she was born and raised in the UK.
Yeah.
And I went to Norway in 2019 because even though I won all the trials in Nicaragua and Canada, Norway still insisted in going after me.
Hmm.
And then I went to and I said, you know what, fuck it. I'm going to Norway because if only they will believe their Norwegian laws, I'm going to go fight it there. The same thing that already had been decided. And
Yeah.
when I got to Norway, I had to wait 2.5 years because COVID hit. So everything was canceled and everything. But during the trial in Norway, there were 7 judges, all white, obviously, right? It's hard to find
It's Norway. It's Norway. It's fine. it doesn't. It doesn't mean therefore
you could
Norwegians
see
hate
their faces
Nigerians.
because my trial lasted 4 days. You could see their faces on the second day. The main judge turned to the district attorney, the one prosecute the government prosecutor, and he goes, "With all of this, why are we here?"
Yeah.
But what was really, I was talking to my lawyer yesterday and he said, you know what was incredible, because there's documentaries that are going to be made about my case, and there's a movie that's going to be made about my life, and people don't believe it until they read all the documents, how corrupt everything was, because Norway never talked about having a trial. They talked about punishing me,
Right.
even though there's an email communication saying that they knew I was innocent of what they were accusing me since 2013.
Yeah.
Having said all of this, the
Without the
reason why
trial.
I'm giving the background for this is because Norway has a reputation for being, and you're fighting a reputation, you're fighting a country's reputation, because Norway has this reputation of being pro human rights and blah, 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 right? So nobody believed me that they were corrupt. And this happened now in Nicaragua. And Shamama Began is a British, was born in England, and she joined ISIS at age 15. And from what I believe, I've tried to follow it, but there's so much, even though there's a lot of information out there, not the relevant information is out there, because everything, I do not like when things are done not in a public forum for
Yeah.
people to make up their minds. Like, if they were to hold a trial in the United Kingdom, public trial, and allow the state to present their evidence and allow her to present her evidence, and then decide fairly, publicly, and squarely whether or not she should be deprived of her citizenship
It
or
wouldn't happen. It
to
wouldn't happen.
jail, you know, that I could get on board with. But right now, we're going with a narrative that the press has put out there against that 15-year-old girl.
Yeah.
You know, and I know many people are going to disagree with me, but it hit home because it happened to me, Matt. And
Well, not me. Not me.
years, for 8 years, for 8 years, I was called a child trafficker. I was
Yeah.
called a hacker. I was called a thief. Apparently, there were like 20 red alerts against me. It was only one for a thing that Norway knew that I was innocent of. My life has been destroyed. I
Yeah.
can't get a job anywhere. So, therefore, I am a businesswoman. People
Yeah.
don't want to do business with me because of what's out in the public domain. And I find it, and you know what's worse? I find that the BBC are giving her a forum to keep saying anything that she wants because now she's a podcaster, apparently, for BBC. Instead of bringing her over to England,
For a trial. Yeah.
exactly,
Public
so people
trial.
can see and understand
Yeah.
why, instead of
Well,
just hating on her.
I'll do a brief preamble for people in the chat, right? But basically, Shamima Begum, all of the people who, because we're in this polarized time, the majority of the people that follow my channel would certainly be called conservative or right of center. And because we're living in these polarized times, if the woke want something, the natural reaction from the right is to want the opposite in everything. So because they want to bring her back for a trial and treat her with kid gloves in every way, obviously you should have a trial, but they want to treat her with kid gloves in every way because they're an ideologue and she's on their little pyramid. She's a woman and she's a practitioner of the minority faith and she's brown. So she's top of the tree. So because of their staggering hypocrisy, whereby if they don't like your politics, there's no due process. They're like, kill them all. Andrew Tate is a good example. Don't care about Andrew Tate. Don't look into him too much. I just read about him briefly. Not interested. But the guy deserves full public due process and a trial, no matter what he's done. And they say, no, we don't like his politics. So who cares? They're on Twitter laughing. Haha, lock him away, throw away the key, no trial required. And I keep saying, and I also defended Julian Assange, I defended Snowden, I defend anyone. Abu Hamza was saying, was protesting the funerals of British soldiers, and I defended him because I'm well read for a bootneck, right? And I remember the people I learned about when I was a teenager in school that had a profound effect on me. We learned about John Locke and David Hume, the greatest historian and philosopher ever, definitely of the 18th century. Basically, those people said that every system is prone to corruption. So you have to have due process, black and white for everyone in a public setting all the time. And all I said was, and it annoyed some of my viewers, we lean towards Shamima Begum, throw the key away, because our opponents want to be hypocritical and treat her differently because of what she is and what she looks like. And I'm saying if you want to be logically consistent, you have to be consistent in all ways, even if it chafes a little bit. And she was a kid, and I've always said to be consistent, you have to defend children and treat them differently from adults. And a 14-year-old girl, it started when she was 14, getting groomed by a bloke on the internet. They can't be held accountable. A 14-year-old girl, that's why it's rape if a bloke has consensual sex with a 14-year-old girl. Because they're not old enough to make these difficult decisions. And if you want to avoid being hypocritical like the woke, you have to be consistent all the time. And the consistent thing, I mean, my side of the aisle are always going on about this LGBT stuff where you're saying you shouldn't be putting on drag shows in front of little kids because they're too young.
They should really fucking
That's what I say. But what I'm saying is that's what I say because I'm consistent. I'm with them on that. I've been pro-gay marriage since I was a teenager because, again, you can disagree with me on that. I don't want to argue about that specifically. What I'm saying is it's because it's consistent.
I have a lot of gay friends. I don't know if you know that. I have a lot of gay friends.
What I'm saying is, to me, the whole reason that I've always been pro that is because it was always adults. We're always saying anything happens between consenting adults. If you want to be a 25-year-old bloke and you want to go to a gay disco and get rinsed by 50 blokes, I don't care because you're a grown man. I only have an issue when children are involved. So what I'm saying is if you want to be logically consistent, you have to defend kids. And Shamima Begum, it may grate on people like us because she's the enemy and she was supporting the enemy. And I don't support anything to do with her views. But you have to give the girl a trial. She was a kid. And if we just turn around now and go, well, we don't like her politics, so who cares what they do with her? Well, then you have to say, well, okay, then. Well, 13-year-olds can cut the penis off, or 14-year-olds.
They're allowed to do that nowadays.
Yeah, well, because the woke are hypocritical, and that's what I'm saying. I don't want to be a hypocrite. So they're disgustingly hypocritical, and they laugh at Andrew Tate in prison, and then they cry about Shamima Begum. I'm saying treat everybody equal all the time, follow due process, and follow the letter of the law as strictly as you can. And to me, that is just logical. I don't even think of myself as politically aggressive either way. I'm just trying to follow what seems logical to me. That's my personality type. I'm an ENTP.
No, I understand. I want you to address this because this is this lady, Anna Perkins. Sorry, Bootneck, but would you have not prosecuted the killers of little Jamie Bulger?
See, now that is an extremely difficult one, right? Because and this is where things get grey. When you bring something in that's an emotive subject, because anything to do with kids, murder, rape is emotive. As I said earlier when we're talking about these grooming gangs, for something as horrific as that, you do have to prosecute them. And again, this is why in the legal system we have ages, different ages for. I think the criminal age has been moved down in England to like 10 or something, right? It's quite low. So they were dealt with by the law.
They went to our home, right? Like they didn't really go to jail. They went like a juvenile, something like that.
Yeah, but the thing is with that, right? I do think you know the difference between right and wrong. And again, it's something I've evolved on, right? When I was in my early 20s, I remember being like, throw the key away. Because when I was 10, I knew you shouldn't smash a kid's head in with bricks on a railway line.
Yeah.
Right? So they needed to be dealt with by the legal system and sectioned away from the public as they were. But ultimately, they were dealt with by the legal system. I think they were in a mental institute for about 10 years, weren't they? And then they let one of them out and he reoffended. I think what you can do with, if they're a kid, then what you do is, a logical thing to me is you follow the letter of the law and then you would put sort of like, you know how we follow anyone who's on the prevent strategy, anybody who's marked by the Secret Service as being of high risk, you can tag them and bag them basically. And I think the people who've done that, definitely, you know not to smash a kid's head in with bricks when you're 10. But you can't just instantly get a 10-year-old and say, right, death penalty or 80 years in jail. So ultimately, you've got to have nuance there. And that's why you have juries with 12 people on them and a big court system. So you can have a long, aggressive argument about the issue. It's hard. Obviously, it's not something that I can solve in 10 minutes on a YouTube channel. The reason we have the legal system is so that when something's really complicated, you get a massive group of people like that selected for the jury who can hash these things out. I would have prosecuted them. I think ultimately, though, you can't do any more than we did, really, which is lock them up for a while, give them as much mental health treatment as you can, and then attempt to rehabilitate them, but watch them very, very closely. Because surely that's where the legal system has to be at. And again, this is where I think people are hypocritical, because when you're quite right-wing on crime, like I am in most ways, I just want us to follow the letter of the law. I'm quite strict on crime. I definitely think we should be like doubling sentences because we're way too soft on it nowadays. But again, this is where I think the left are hypocritical, because they always say, oh yeah, the judiciary system isn't about punishment. No, it's about rehabilitation. And then when someone does something truly monstrous, like Ian Huntley, people like me who would have always just said, regretfully put them down, because that's what I am. I'm like Peter Hitchens on the death penalty. I think it's something you should. I'm not against it in principle if we can prove that we do it fairly and rigorously. Is that me or you? It's Alexa. She's annoying me. If it's something you can do fairly and rigorously, I support the death penalty in limited circumstances. So I'd say Ian Huntley, regretfully put him down. But the left, when you get someone who's done something monstrous, they all go on TV and go, haha, look, we've passed this special new law, so he's got a full life sentence. He'll never be let out. And I'm like, well, again, then you're not being consistent, are you? Because you say it's not about punishment, it's about rehabilitation. I say you can rehabilitate burglars, you can rehabilitate drug addicts, but you can't rehabilitate a guy who's a cannibal or who likes eating and killing kids. So put him down. And they go, no. So again, they're totally hypocritical. I believe
selective. What's it that Chris Rock said? Selective outrage.
Selective outrage. That's a good example, right? Because when it's someone who's done something really monstrous, they go, yeah, never let him out ever. But then when someone's done something they quite have a soft spot for, like Shamama, they're like, it's fine, just send it. She can be a lollipop lady. It's ludicrous. Yeah. To me, you have to be consistent.
Yeah. To me, it raises a red flag. The fact that, because when I finally made it to Norway, because I actually flew to Norway and I was stopped in Frankfurt, and then Norway didn't want me to come to Norway in spite of the fact that they had a red alert. And the first thing the police said to me, why did you have to come back? And I turned to the two of them and I said, weren't you looking for me? Aren't you glad that I'm here? And it's like, you would be so shocked, Matt. Everything in my trial was blacked out. And the judges were going, why is everything blacked out? There was so much corruption. Between the Ministry of Justice, the Foreign Ministry, the former ambassador who was Lars, who was helping my ex-husband, had to, because when the shit hits the fan, everybody wants to wash their hands off of it, right? They never thought I'd come to Norway. So the ambassador, to wash his hands off the whole mess, he was asked point blank, you were helping Alf. What did you do to help Paula and Henrik, who are also Norwegian citizens? And then he started talking, well, the Americans were involved. And then the judge goes, no. We're not talking about the United States. We're in Norway. They're Norwegian citizens. They asked for help. What did the Ministry of Foreign Affairs do to help them? So he had to openly admit in a court of Norway that the top, and he's actually the head of NATO apparently now, Jens Stoltenberg. He's the head of NATO. I actually met him a few times because I used to go to the Norwegian Ministry of Foreign Affairs and my ex-husband worked there. And apparently he was the head of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. He gave instructions not to assist me nor Henrik, a minor and a female, in any shape or form. Corruption. And he's the head of NATO right now.
Yeah, which is what I'm saying, which is why everything has to have as much sunlight on it as you possibly can. And I don't think it's a political issue. It's only a political issue for ideologues. To me, treat everybody. That's why Lady Justice wears a blindfold. Everything has to be out in the open, public involved, all eyes on it. And that's the way you do it. And obviously you got stitched up because things are corrupted. And that's why I feel the way I do about old Shammy Beggs, even though everybody hates her and wants to bury her in the desert.
The lady's saying here that she's worried that if they bring her to the UK, that she's going to escape and she's going to be loose in the United Kingdom.
If we're so incompetent that we can't properly lock up a scrawny girl and let her loose, blowing us all the bits, we deserve it. We suck in the United Kingdom. We really need to buck our ideas up. And that's because the civil service is grossly incompetent and that's corrupt. And all of these ideologues are in there and they treat people differently based on how the politics are. It really needs sorting out. But I don't think that's just because we suck doesn't mean it's an excuse to start not applying the letter of the law equally. Right. To me, just because we're terrible at something doesn't mean rip up the entire rule book.
What do you think should happen to her? What do you think should be the correct thing to do with her?
I think she should come back to the UK, get a proper public trial, go over the evidence as thoroughly as possible. And then if she's found guilty of all the things she's accused of, she gets locked up for a very long time, as it's supposed to be by the letter of the law. But you have to have the trial. This is what I'm saying. The hypocritical walk on Twitter, laugh when right-wing people get stitched up by the courts. And I don't. And I don't when left-wing people get stitched up by the courts is what I'm saying. You need to be consistent. If Shammy Beggs has done all the stuff that she said she did. And she
but what is it that she's accused of? Because
they reckon she was like chuckling while they were chopping people's heads off and stuff. They reckon she was like a complete, an all-in jihadi. And if that's true, she deserves 20 years in the nick for it. But you have to have the court case. And people don't understand the point I keep making. It's not that I went to war 5 times. I was personally involved scrapping the Taliban. I am in no way, in fact, I would never call myself I-ophobic, right? I don't think I am, because I'm purely about the logic. But if someone was to take me out of context, you could see why I am. I don't have a soft spot for the religion of pieces at all. I do not have a soft spot for it. But you have to be consistent. Get her back, give her a trial. And I'd say that about anyone on my side of the fence or anyone on the far left. You trial them because you have to. Because as soon as we just rip up the rule book, we're living in the Wild West. You have to give her a trial. And if she's done all the things they said she's done, and we examine all the evidence, then stick her behind bars for 25 years. Fine. But you don't just do it because you don't like someone.
Well, apparently they had some sort of secret trial, or that the minister.
Secret doesn't count. I don't care
but
about secret trial.
what's it? The minister of, what's it called? This guy who was the one who made the decision not to take away her citizenship. What was he was the minister of what? I can't remember.
Ministry of Justice, maybe.
No.
I don't even know. Was it the Home Secretary who personally?
Home Secretary, yes, that's the guy.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
He said that after he examined all the evidence, because he goes, if you had seen what I'd seen, then you would have made the same call. Then let us see it. And not because
that's one guy
philosophy or anything, but it's because it should be, I understand some things may be, but there shouldn't be anything that should be for home security or whatever, because this is a girl who took a bad decision, went to 14, 15 years of age. She went there. She's clearly probably has some issues, because one of the comments she made was actually quite disturbing to me, because the reporter who was on her side for about a year, you saw his interview, right?
Yeah, I did. Yeah,
he said that when he had some issues with his son or something like that, and he said something to her like, I can only imagine, I cannot even, I feel bad because you lost your 3 children. And then she was, I'm over that.
yeah, she seems to be horrible, but I'm still saying you still have to have the trial. Where you say there, if you'd only seen what I'd seen, even the word secret, right? The first thing I think when you say secret is secret police, Stasi, right? It's like basically a guy saying, if you'd seen what I'd seen, you agree. It just makes me think of Joseph Smith. When he said that he'd seen all these golden tablets with the word of God on. Oh, well, you can't see them. Well, I don't care then.
Well, I want to see them. Some people are really fired up here. I want that badge.
Sure they are.
Cost us a shitload of money because she does not like the past choices she made, killing innocents. She will also make a lot of money, because that's unfortunately true for some criminals. Well, she's making money right now with the BBC, giving her a podcast. I don't think that's for free. She will also make a lot of money. The newspapers will want to talk to her, and then a book, and she will become a millionaire. She was also personally involved in sewing suicide bombers into their vest in case they change their minds, and could be detonated by remote control.
Yeah, so then you would say, well, she won't, because she'll probably get 25 years in jail. And if I was in charge, all the sentences would be doubled, because we just slap people on the wrist now. If I was doing it, she'd get the trial, we'd all see the evidence, then she'd do 25 years in the nick, and then we can take all the money off her, because the state could be large fines, give money back to the victims, whatever you want. The other point I would make
Actually, I don't think you're allowed to make money from the crimes you've committed.
The other point I would make is, coin is never a good argument for anything, because I specifically remember when Salman Rushdie was doing a tour in the UK, and Shirley Williams, this detestable left-wing Labour twat, went on Question Time and said, oh, no, we can't have Salman Rushdie coming over here because she's an woke ideologue who just loves anybody who's an adherent of that religion that we never say. She was slagging him off, saying, oh, we can't have Salman Rushdie come over because it'll cost the taxpayers money. And Christopher Hitchens famously ripped her a new arsehole on national television and said, really? So this guy's just done what all free people should be allowed to do, and write a book. And because it's going to cost us a bit of money, you're just siding with Abu Hamza and Osama bin Laden and saying, who cares? Kill him then. You can't make everything about coin.
We're going to talk about money. Prince Harry is costing the taxpayers right now £300,000 counting.
I'm sure he is.
Over a frivolous lawsuit, because he wants to pay the police to protect them. And this is a frivolous lawsuit because you can't pay the police to protect you. You pay taxes.
Yeah.
And the taxes cover that. But the reason why he did this lawsuit is because then he wants the court to come to and conclude, well, you can't pay the police, but we're going to give you bodyguards like you used to. That's what he's really after. But so
Yeah.
if people talk about money, for me personally, I would like to know if it, and maybe I'm jaded because of what happened to me, but if I hadn't gone to Norway, and you still Google me, Matt, you can Google me, you will get child trafficker, wanted by Norway, all kinds of things. And it's like, and even though I won, there's some articles that are obscure because when you win and I didn't just win. I mean, the judgment, if you read it, is like, how could we have even gotten here? But for 8 years, that narrative from Norway. The government of Norway was there.
Yeah.
So had I not gone to Norway to fight that,
and that's why everything has to be out in the open, because corruption will just eat us all up. You have to have the public trial, the public facing, everything needs to be out there. And any guy who says, oh, well, if you'd seen what I'd seen, you'd agree with me. Well, show me then. If I'd agree with you, what you're scared of showing me? If I'd agree with you.
I don't get. You know what? I don't understand why they don't do something like that.
And that's why I feel the way I do. And again, like I said, I can understand everybody in the chat. It's the most divisive video I've ever made. I think 50% of the people that watched it and went, nah, you're wrong on this. That's fine. I'm not a commie, so I like disagreement. I like the arguments. Arguments is how you come to a good conclusion. I'd also point out that I think for the first year, I was on their side. I was joining in gleefully, going, yeah, fuck Shammy Bagoo, who cares? It's only after ruminating on it for over a year that I thought, actually, it doesn't really make sense, does it? Because I'm the guy who's always saying, you can't show 12-year-olds porn. You can't do drag shows for 14-year-olds. You can't change your gender when you're 15. And then all of a sudden, when she's involved, because I don't like her and I don't like her ideology, I'm like, who cares? Just bury her in the desert. Got to be consistent, is my opinion.
Well, if you look at this, I mean, I'm gonna give you this one, which is a little bit shallow. How about Sanders losing everything because apparently he slept with what's her name, Virginia Roberts, when she was at least 17 years of age, at age of consent.
Yeah, Guthrie. Is it Virginia Guthrie? Is that her name?
Yeah. Well, now it's but she used to be Virginia
she was Roberts. Right. Okay.
Sorry. What's her last name? Geoffrey.
I thought it was Guthrie, Virginia Guthrie.
Yeah, she married. But
so that one's a hard one as well, isn't it?
Because they said, oh, she was an innocent woman, 17, who was groomed by Jeffrey Epstein from the age of 16, and the entire United Kingdom went after her, went behind her because she was considered, just a minor, and groomed by Jeffrey Epstein and Prince Andrew's a nasty piece of shit who slept with her, and even though she was of legal age of consent.
Yeah.
It happened. So I don't understand the double standards. I don't understand the selective outrage.
I'll tell you what, it's a good job, but Bootneck is honest and just likes these open conversations, because you're throwing me some hard ones today. Jamie Bulger and this, that's a tough one. I would say that
what did he say? I'm sorry, I'm dyslexic. What did he say?
Who say?
Jamie.
Oh no, I'm saying Jamie Bulger was a hard one, because that was what one of your chatters said. It's a little kid who got killed by kids. It's a hard one to answer. This is also a hard one, right? Because if you think about it, being over 16 is the line that for God knows how long we've drawn in the sand in the UK. In America, it's 18. So the reason this is such a difficult one is because she's not a kid at 17. And it's difficult because therefore he's not a pedo. When you get to that sort of age group in the UK, society self-polices. I'll give you a good example, right? And again, like I said, this is a hard one. So I don't want anyone to clip this and make me out like I'm pro-pedo. But let's lay it out as best we can, right? So in UK, society self-polices. You have to pick a line in the sand somewhere because real life's complicated and everybody's brain's different, right? So some 18-year-olds are very, very mature and some 16-year-olds are very immature and vice versa. Some 15, 16-year-olds might be mega, mega mature and some 20-year-old lads might be mega immature. So this sort of thing is policed by society. When I was a kid in England, if when you were 16 and you're in the last year of high school, there'd always be some lass who's sort of trendy and she's going out with some lad who's left school and everyone would call him a cradle snatcher because it's not illegal, but it's sort of frowned upon. So when you've got like a 15 or a 16-year-old girl going out with like a 20 or a 21-year-old lad, it's right on the borderline of legality. So nobody gets involved from the authorities, but society self-polices, because you never see it happening with like a 30-year-old. You'd see
But
like
look
a
at
20 or a 21-year-old.
let's not go far. Look at Leonardo DiCaprio with a
Yeah,
19-year-old girlfriend that he has
yeah,
right now. I
yeah.
mean, things are. I have some people here. Listen to this. I have some people here. Begum is rather like these internet narcs who take videos of themselves offending, gifting the evidence to the courts created by themselves. This is why the podcast not seen is actually a good thing. And then somebody said she was already in the sex business. I assume that's Virginia Giuffre. And then Anna Perkins, I am a mom. I have my son. Anna Perkins, you have a very good point. Paula, sadly, Jamie Bulger no longer has a voice stolen from him before his third birthday. You know what?
Yeah.
I agree absolutely. And let me tell you something. If I had been the mom, I probably would have tried to find out who the kid. Probably the parents knew. I don't know if I would have killed the kid myself, because I probably would
Understandable.
have done that if somebody had done something like that to Henrik. I don't think I would have looked at his age. I probably would have wanted harm the kid myself that done something to my kid.
It is
I'm not joking.
understandable.
I'm being very honest here. I am being incredibly honest here. I would have want to kill the boys who killed my son. I
Of
would
course
have,
you would.
even if I went to jail, I would have, especially the way they killed him. But what I don't think that here we're talking about that we condone that. We're talking about legal due process, you
Of
know?
course not. Yeah. Well, that's what I'm saying. And again, I'm human animal as well, right? I've joked about this many times in my infinitely more good-humored videos. Saying like if something really, really bad happened to my missus, she got raped and murdered by some guy, and this soft legal system we've got now. Because, like I said, I'm pretty right-wing on crime. I'm just all about procedure and statistics and logic. I'm pretty right-wing on crime. If my missus got raped and murdered and some twat judge gave the guy who did it like 8 years in prison, I'm convinced I would not be able to handle it. I'd just blow the fucker's brains out on the steps of the courtroom. I wouldn't be able to handle it. So I understand exactly what's going on there. I'm just saying, when you're having long, complex philosophical discussions about very, very difficult things, the only thing you've got to keep going back to is the process, the due process, because if we haven't got that, we are living in the Wild West. I fully understand why you'd want to murder someone who wrongs you so badly, but if we go back to that and we encourage it, we're going to be living in the dark ages. Like, you have to have it. I'm not a Christian. I'm an agnostic / atheist. I'm not one of these, hey man, turn the other cheek, bro, types of people. I've got these base instincts. If that happened to my missus or my kid, I'd probably want to kill the bastards. But I'm just saying, if we're discussing it about what's good for the big picture, I try to remain consistent with this idea that we can have a due process and a legal system that works. I'm not immunized against that. And I want to go back to Andrew just to finish, because I don't want anybody thinking I'm a nonce. What I was going to say was, that is what I'm talking about, is it's not illegal. So at times I might have sounded like I was almost offending him, because I'm saying, listen, in England, if you're 17, you're not a little kid. If he was shagging a 12-year-old, birch the bastard and lock him up forever. What I was saying is, again, he's a dirty bastard and he's a creep, but he's not a full-blown pedo. There
That's
needs
what
to
I
be
said also.
graduations.
People
Like, to
got
me,
angry with me. People got angry with me. And
yeah,
and people, you know what? Prince Charles has been to Jeffrey Epstein's island.
but he has, and Bill Clinton.
No,
And
no, he
again,
has. He has. He has.
yeah,
The
yeah,
the the
and
the
Clinton
the,
did.
the flight log was released in the court. I posted it on my TikTok. The proper flight log and visit log to
Yeah.
Jeffrey Epstein Island. And I mean,
Shocking.
Prince Charles, well, now King Charles, invited Jeffrey Epstein to Prince William's, I think it was 18th or 21st birthday or something like that.
Yeah,
I don't know if he attended or not,
yeah.
and Bill Gates also. And then we see Bill
All
Gates
of
shaking
them.
his hand.
All
I
of them.
mean,
I know.
I think that the problem I have is that the system is selective also with who they prosecute. I
Again,
wonder
because it's
if
corrupt. And that's
Shemina
why,
Begum had been Prince Harry or Meghan Markle. Let's say that it had been Princess Eugenie, that at 15 years of age, she took off and did this. Would they have taken away her citizenship, or would they be making excuses
cost the
for
wood.
her?
They'd make excuses, and because everything's is prone to corruption, they'd hide it all, they'd cover it up, they wouldn't have the daylight on it. And that's what I'm saying, why you need to just have everything out in the open. Because of course they'd stitch it up for a cost of wood. That's the world we live in. Like I said, these are all difficult questions, and that's why they're interesting to debate. You don't want to just talk about boring shit that we all agree on. Cancer's bad. Yeah, well, I don't even want to talk about that. Boring if it's easy. That's what my point is. I'm a debater. I love to argue.
And I hope people
like
ask us really tough questions. Please, Prince Charles went to Epstein Islands. Was it not Andrew? No, also Prince Charles went to Epstein Islands, island with Fergie, Barack Obama, Michelle Obama. And guess who was a repeating guest at his island? You will not, I mean, I'm sorry, I'm swearing. You're the one who's swearing your channel, but now you're not swearing. I know, but guess who went to his island? Ruth Bader Ginsburg, the lady from the Supreme Court.
Oh, really?
Island 7 times.
It's a small world. Yeah, so, well, that's what I'm getting at.
But guess who didn't go to his island? Guess who didn't go to his island?
Oh.
Donald Trump.
Oh, yeah, really? That's interesting.
Biden, most of the Democrats, Barack, right. Michelle Obama, the Clintons clearly were regulars. A lot of Will Smith, everybody, they all went there. But Donald Trump
is, right,
went to his island.
Again,
Tom Hanks went to Elizabeth G. Tom Hanks also went there.
I have to disagree with you. Again, I'm making myself look terrible here. Basically, right?
Don't disagree with me. I love it.
You have to understand as well, though, right? Surely some of the people who went there went because he was so rich and so powerful and so influential. Some of them are just going to have gone. Like if I was in a bar with my missus and we bumped into him and he went, "Hey, do you guys want to come? I'll fly out there for free." I'd have probably went, "Yeah, go on then." And I'd have been getting pissed, completely unaware that 2 doors down, some little kid's getting shagged by some powerful oligarch. You can't just instantly, again, just call everybody who ever went there total scum.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. But then everybody knew about him. Everybody
it is very alarming. Yeah, it is.
Everybody knew about him. It's like Harvey Weinstein. Everybody knew about him, but everybody kept shut, just like Oprah.
Yeah,
And apparently Oprah was a procurer. So it's different if you don't know and you go there, but people knew about it and still went. Let me give you an example. I love this. I don't know how much you know about the Norwegian royal family. Mette-Marit, who is married to the Crown Prince of Norway, Håkon. They were just visiting. They just had meetings with, what's their name? Prince and Princess of Wales, the current Prince and Princess of Wales. They did a lovely picture and everything. Mette-Marit, when the whole Jeffrey Epstein came to life, she did a preemptive thing. She issued an apology saying, "Oh, because Jeffrey Epstein was a regular visitor in Norway with them to their home and everything after he was convicted." So the apology she issued was the following. It's not even an apology. It's an acknowledgement. Kind of apology. She says, "I'm very sorry that we kept the friendship going. I just didn't know how much of a pedophile he was." So I did a video on it and I thought, fuck me. I didn't know there were degrees of pedophilia that were acceptable.
Well, again.
Oh my God. So you have pedo, number one. I mean, pedo is from because he only got girls from 10 to 14. It wasn't as bad from babies to, but she knew, they were aware that he had been sentenced and everybody knew. So everybody who went to his island knew about it because it was all over the circles.
The reason I'm laughing so much is because, like I said, I love a proper argument and I never get offended by anything. But it is funny because I feel like if people clip this conversation, they can definitely make me look like a pedo. I'm always playing devil's advocate for these people.
But I'm not.
But anyway, what I'm saying is, though, I agree with you. I think there should be degrees.
I'm laughing about it because her apology made no sense.
It is funny. What I'm saying is, though, there should be degrees because this is what I'm getting at, right? Like, if a dirty bastard like Prince Andrew shags a 20-year-old lass, it's still a dirty bastard even though she's old enough. 58-year-old men should not be shagging 20-year-old girls.
Leonardo DiCaprio, why aren't people
he's a mucky bastard. But at the same time, it's not the same as a 50-year-old man shagging a 4-year-old. There should be degrees, and it sort of seems like there isn't because we love a mob. we just, as soon as anyone's a pedo, we're like, kill them all. But there sort of is degrees, isn't it? Like if a 30-year-old shags a 15-year-old, that's shocking and he should be prosecuted. But he shouldn't do as much time behind bars as a bloke who fucks a 4-year-old. Like, there should be degrees. And again, it's funny because I feel like I'm sticking up for pedos all the time. But you know what I'm saying?
We're all
there should be
adults here,
degrees.
that people understand what we're talking about here, okay? Because let me tell you something. 15-year-old today is not the same a 15-year-old as I was a 15-year-old. And I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing. Let me tell you why. And maybe you disagree with me. When I was a 15-year-old, I remember my dad would come and pick me up at school. And he was very good. My dad was awesome. And there was a show called Candy. It was a cartoon. I don't know if any of you know about that show. It's a cartoon called Candy. And unfortunately, because I misbehaved at school, they transferred me to the afternoon school, which was where not the badly behaved children went to the afternoon class, right? And it was a punishment for me because Candy started at 4:30 in the afternoon and I finished at 5. So my dad lied to the school and said, I need to take Pat. Well, my middle name is Patricia, and my dad called me Pat. I need to take Pat to the doctor on Thursdays at 4. So I need to pick her up at 3:30. So my dad was like that. So I didn't have, there was no internet. There was no social media. I was playing relay, football, everything. Nowadays, children, because unfortunately the internet blew up, they have too much access to too much information and not the maturity to process it.
Yeah.
It's like in schools, they give you sex. I mean, you know all about procreation and everything, but they don't. They should also. I've always been a believer of that. They should also have a psychological class, a psychology class about the effects, because it's not just this is how you get pregnant. Because children at that age, they think they're going to be in love forever with the same person. I remember that. Oh my God, I'm going to marry her. I'm so in love, and I'm going to kill myself. Because they teach you that. No, I know they teach you that. I look back at my first crush, and I thought, oh my God.
Yeah.
And then it's like they teach you all about the mechanics, but they don't teach you the emotional side of it.
I agree with you. Maybe it's time to re-examine the age thing, because I mean that's another political hot point. All of the lefties are trying to put the weight on the scales in their favour by lowering the voting age. And people like me for years have been saying, in the last 25 years, where we've got less mature, not more mature. It's like decades ago, they were down the mines when they were 14. Now, I feel like, if anything, we should be putting the voting age up, not bringing it down. So maybe with all that like consent stuff, maybe we should relook at it. Who knows? But I agree with you in that respect. I don't think kids nowadays are anywhere near as mature at like 15 as they were 30 years ago. So again, that's another thing where I think the woke are hypocritical, right? Because when it suits them, they go, oh, of course you can get a sex change when you're 13. And then they go, oh, no, but we should put the voting age down as well. And they're not consistent with that either. It's like, to me, conservative-minded people, you go and listen. Kids nowadays, they're spoiled. They're not as mature. Maybe we should put these things up. So that's what's strange to me. Like, they contradict themselves there as well, because they argue, no, we should let 14-year-olds vote. They're all mature now. They should be able to vote. It's like, no, they shouldn't. Like, it doesn't make any sense. If anything, we should be putting the bloody ages up, shouldn't we? Put up like 20 or something.
Yeah, because just because there's information, and let's not forget that a lot of the stuff that's out there, I'm not even going to call it information. A lot of the stuff that's available on internet is not even accurate nor true.
No, it's nonsense.
So, and a lot of people take it as though it is accurate and true. And these are children, and their minds are being manipulated, and they have this. I mean, I have one of my nieces. I have not a niece. One of my cousin's daughter. She loves the Little Mermaid. She wants to be a mermaid. What does that mean? Am I going to cut her legs and turn her into a mermaid or something like that? I mean, at what point? And you know what? I'm not condoning child violence or anything like that. I've never hit Henrik, but it's like even the thought of that you have to take away their Nintendo is an act of aggression. I have one of my girlfriends, her son, and I said to her, I would have fucking smashed. I would have spanked him. He called the police on her because in the States, when they went to her, he called the police on her because she took away his phone privileges. He's only 11. She took away his phone privileges for 3 days because I think he slapped a girl in school, and she took away his Nintendo, everything for 3 days. So on the second day, he's so addicted to these things that he called the police on her and said that she was being abusive towards him. And bless the policeman's heart. He said, because apparently the guy was like 50 something, goes, you know what? The next time you call us, he was talking to the kid, we're going to arrest you.
Yeah, well, again, to people like you and I, this story is entirely expected, because we've been saying for years that this is the way society's gone. Nowadays, these loonies on the left say that silence is violence. In the old days, it was like violence was violence. Now, that's their mantra. If you disagree with us, violence. If you have an argument with us, violence. Silence is violence. So, it's not enough to just stay away. You have to support us vociferously. And if you don't agree with us, violence. That's the placard they all have. I made a poster about it. Silence is violence. So if they say, oh yeah, oh my God, poor old Oprah Winfrey is massively getting stitched up. Oh my God, poor old Oprah. And you just go, violence. You have to agree with me. This is the world we're living in. So, of course, they think taking the phone privileges away is abuse, because now they think being quiet's abuse as well.
No, I mean, and I said to my friend, why didn't you beat the crap out of him? And she goes, can you imagine if you doing that? Yeah. And I mean, I just want to hear your thoughts on this. This is somebody that I follow on TikTok. This is very short, and I want to hear your opinion on this, because I know you have to go.
This has to be my last one, Paul. I do have to go.
Yes. And I want you to tell me what you think of this lady, because
it's anything but free.
Wait, let me see. I'm gonna let you.
I really wish I could be standing up here joining in the eulogies to a free media and its crucial role as a pillar in our democracies. But I look at the media that we have and I don't see much freedom. Our media is strangled by money. It's hobbled by fear. For most media organizations, access to power is far more important than holding power to account. Careers depend on towing the line. Balance sheets demand a constant churn of stories which are recycled from official statements, press releases, social media, anywhere but out in the world, anything but upset the status quo. And Nick Davis described this in 2008 as the mass production of ignorance. 14 years later, it's way worse now. So if we want to hold ourselves as the defenders of media freedom, we have to recognize that our mainstream media is anything but free.
What do you think of that?
Well, I think after the last 2 hours, you know what I think about that. I agree with every single thing she said. I thought it was a superb little 60 seconds of agreeing with me. That's spot on. It's exactly right. It's why we're in the trouble we're in. And as I said, it was started probably in the 90s and it ramped up, and it was this, what they call the long march through the institutions, when they put these ideologues in all the positions of power and they work their way up. And now they've got a complete monopoly over everything. All around the world, you've got the civil service, the judiciary, the mainstream media, the airwaves, the radio waves, the TV stations, the printed media. They all agree on everything all of the time. So they're not doing what we've just done and actually debated everything aggressively, because that's how you get good policy. You have an adversarial parliament where you get all the people who disagree and they argue for hours and hours, and then they go, okay, we'll do this. And then you know what you do moving forward has been rigorously debated. Both sides have been covered and you come to an accord. And because we've now lived in World War woke has been fought and lost by the forces of order, we're now living in this society where they just decide everything and everybody agrees with them and nobody debates anything and they do it. And that's why we are in serious shit, Paula.
You know what? Hopefully we can do another next week, because I want to talk to you about Ukraine and all kinds of things. But I just want to let you go with one question. Is this what you fought for?
No. And I shared an amusing meme about that. A load of guys on the landing craft on D-Day, going up there ready to take Sword Beach with all the Germans dug in. And one of the speech bubbles says, I hope my grandkids are communists. It's like, that's the world we're living in. It's crazy. Well, I did really enjoy that. We'll definitely do it again.
Yeah, we'll do it again. There's so much to talk about. I'll let you go. Thank you so much. Yeah. All of you, go to the Angry Bootneck, and please join his channel. And we're gonna do this probably next week if he has time. Okay, and we can.
If I've got time, we will. I did enjoy myself.
Send me your questions, and what you join us, and you can ask us the hard questions because we will answer them.
All right. Nice talking to you,
Thank you so
everyone.
much.
Cheers. Thanks, Paula. I'll see you soon.
Bye, sweetie.
Bye-bye. Take it easy.